Labango, a small town 800 kilometers southeast of Angola's capital, Natalia Rassasano makes banana beer. Her family is considered quite prosperous. Natalia is a teacher and has had 9 children. The young try and help her in the kitchen. $20 a month is usually what can be scraped together, and on top of that there is the added bonus gain from selling banana beer. They could live on this, but for the war. We all want the war to stop. 30 years of war is far, far too long. Many have lost their lives, relatives, people we know. Many people are totally without families. They live alone in their houses, hungry, with no money. Lots of people can't even buy themselves food. Luanda, the capital of Angola, was once a thriving metropolis of southwest Africa. But the Portuguese moved on in 1975, leaving behind elegant colonial buildings. The colonial days are over. The War of Independence lasted for 5 years, and since then, civil war has ransacked the nation. The liberators from those times are divided. The MPLA controls the cities and government, and UNITA controls most of rural areas. The economy is suffering, corruption is thriving, and the infrastructure is in ruins. Only rusty carriages remain from the golden era of the Portuguese railways. Yet Angola is rich. Its wealth comes from the land full of natural resources. Oil, diamond and uranium mines can be found all over Angola and are very lucrative. Much of the unrest can be attributed to control of these mines. The mining minister sees the situation with realistic cynicism. Working in the mining industry is difficult because a large part of the country is no longer under our control. But there are many rivers here, one quite nearby in Uzi, where you only have to dip your hand in, and diamonds flow by. We are rich paupers. We have everything, except money.
Temos tudo, mas não temos dinheiro.
The state-controlled Angolan television station, TPA, does not present the whole picture. The main story of the day is the issue of the warrant for the arrest of UNITA's leader, Jonas Savimbi. Until recently, there was an agreement that UNITA would join with the government and Savimbi would be vice president. Now they're back at war. President José Eduardo dos Santos is presented as the savior of the Angolan people. All his activities are described with critical acclaim, whereas Jonas Savimbi, the rebel leader, is portrayed as the man responsible for the hunger, poor health, and deteriorating education of Angolan people, services which are practically unoperational. Santos's control over state television prevents cases of corruption within the government, or UNITA's gains being mentioned. The situation in Angola has deteriorated radically. The city of Uzi has been under siege by UNITA for 6 months. At the end of last year, the city had almost 90,000 inhabitants, but now only 18,000 remain. People have fled the gun battles, leaving the area deserted. With little food or water, people suffer from hunger and malnutrition. The situation is critical, and with shortages of medicine, disease becomes widespread.
Man kann sich vorstellen, was hier passiert bzw. nicht mehr passiert. Es läuft nichts mehr. Die Leute hungern konstant. Jetzt vor kurzem ist etwas sehr Tragisches passiert. Vor genau 10 Tagen
what the situation is like here. The hunger is never ending. A tragic incident occurred 10 days ago when a convoy of 80 trucks carrying basic supplies such as food, salt, sugar and toilet paper was hijacked. UNITA attacked the convoy in the middle, so 10 lorries were able to get away, but we lost the rest of the supplies. There are a lot of funerals at the moment, and prices are very high. All we have here is the fruit and the trees, but apart from that, nothing. The urban population knows little about the scale of the misery. Of course, it's necessary to treat certain topics with due caution given the war situation. And as far as radio is concerned, you can say that we have complete freedom of press here. Back in Lubango, Natalia celebrates her 51st birthday by looking at photos of happier times. She tells us this is how she looked when she was young. Photographs make her happy. Her favorite photo shows her now deceased husband and her with her 2 newly born twins. Life was better before, in colonial times. We didn't have much money, but everyone had their own little business. Whoever had work could rely on the fact that the whites would pay them for it. Everyone who worked got something for it, even if it wasn't much. Outside Luanda is La Roque, Angola's biggest market. On busy days, 1 million people come here. The place is alive with activity. Here people barter with everything they own and everything they have acquired illegally. This is where the daily fight for survival takes place. 5 years ago, Luanda had a population of 1.5 million. Now it has 3. The civil war has driven people away from the countryside and into the cities. Overcrowding and competition for the few jobs available inevitably leads to poverty. UNITA buys weapons to kill. The government buys weapons to defend itself and to kill too. They don't do anything to provide the nation with food. The country is clearly rich enough to buy weapons, but too poor to provide food. That sounds like a contradiction, but it is reality. In Luanda, life carries on. An urban infrastructure which struggles to function provides some comfort away from the raging gun battles in rural areas. MPLA government claims there is no room for democracy in Angola. They say democratic elections are an unnecessary intrusion in time of civil war. The UN has seen how UNITA has not only failed to disarm, but has in fact increased its arms. This has all happened whilst we, the government, have maintained a negotiated ceasefire. The tragedy of this country is that the UN is unwilling to see what is happening here. For a while now, UNITA has no longer been about ideology, but about power. It's about nothing but power. The United Nations has had enough and is pulling 8,000 peacekeeping troops out of Angola, which had been stationed there to supervise a fragile ceasefire agreement. Only 500 will remain to supervise their withdrawal.
If there is a blame to take,
when mistakes are made and
learn lessons, it should be learned by all of us. All of us means the UN, it means Angolan government, it means the UNITA, it means also the troika of observer states, namely United States, Russia, and Portugal. So we were all at the Joint Commission, and all the decisions were taken by consensus. UN couldn't impose anything to anyone. So all what have been done has been done by all of us, the Joint Commission.
Natalia has not believed the images she receives from her television, or the official version that only one side is responsible for the war. I hope that the war will finally come to an end. We've got to finally be able to live normal lives again. I can't stand this misery any longer. I'm tired of the war.
Não queremos mais a guerra. Estamos cansados.
Angola, which is 4 times the size of Germany, with all its wealth from natural resources, should have no problem feeding its 12 million inhabitants. But the suffering continues.